Reality is not what you enter, it's what you generate. You are not inside the program. You are the source code running it. The glitch you've been sensing isn't an error, it's an invitation. Introduction. There is something embedded deep within you, an unspoken command, a silent signature, a living pulse that quietly bends the structure of everything around you. You've felt it in moments that made no logical sense, when time slowed, when outcomes reversed, when the world responded to your internal shift without a word spoken. These weren't coincidences. They were ripples from a hidden interface between your consciousness and the quantum substrate beneath all form. The quantum reality codes is not about believing in magic or manifesting dreams. It's about reclaiming authorship of the algorithm that constructs what we call real. Every thought is a sequence, every emotion is a signal, and every focused state becomes a living instruction injected into the field. Most people run old code, programmed reactions, inherited beliefs, and unconscious frequencies. But there is another way, a conscious override, a raw, direct connection to the mechanics of creation itself. This is not philosophy. This is not spirituality dressed in metaphors. This is the underlayer of reality, speaking in vibration, structure, and frequency, responding not to wishes, but to resonance. Once you begin to activate this internal intelligence, the simulation you've been calling life starts to behave differently. Patterns shatter, limits dissolve, reality stretches in directions that were previously inaccessible. This is the code your mind was never trained to read, but your soul never forgot, and now it's waking up. If you're feeling the code stir within you, like reality is already responding, declare it. Type "code activated" in the comments to claim your shift. If this transmission resonated, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more downloads that unlock the unseen architecture of your life. Chapter 1. The Signal Hidden in Stillness. When everything within you becomes still, when you are not thinking, not intending, not reacting, not moving, something rare begins to take shape. In this condition, you are no longer projecting disturbance into the field around you. Instead, you become a silent transmitter. Without effort, without purpose, without definition, your very presence begins to affect what surrounds you. The signal you emit when your inner world is perfectly quiet holds a kind of power that is easily overlooked. It is not forceful or loud. It is not filled with desire or tension. It is neutral. But it is precisely this neutrality that gives it the ability to override noise, like a frequency that cancels out interference. The still field you emanate carries the authority to restructure your surroundings by its sheer consistency. Stillness, in its most refined form, begins to build pressure, not the kind that overwhelms, but the kind that concentrates. The longer you remain in this state without moving, without reacting, the more condensed the internal energy becomes. It folds in on itself, becomes thicker, denser, quieter. But with that quiet comes weight, not physical weight, but vibrational gravity, like a storm forming in absolute silence. This is not stagnation, it is compression. What would have spilled outward as speech or action is instead held back and distilled. It sharpens into a kind of invisible charge. This compression changes the shape of your presence, and the field around you begins to respond. As this condensed presence continues to stabilize, it gives rise to what can be called a static field of consciousness. This does not mean lifeless or inert. It means unmoving, unshifting, and yet fully aware. In this still state, you are no longer broadcasting fragments of thoughts or fluctuations of feeling. Instead, your entire energy signature becomes a single, unified field that does not flicker. The world around you starts to register this stability. Even though it happens beneath surface perception, the outcomes you experience begin to bend around this field. Situations begin to align differently. Events subtly reposition themselves. Nothing looks dramatic, yet everything moves into a more coherent shape, as if the world adjusts to accommodate your unchanging stillness. In this field, something even more peculiar happens. The absence of motion becomes a signal in itself. Normally, movement creates ripples, but here, the absence of motion is the ripple. It becomes a message, not one that is sent, but one that is interpreted. Reality begins to reorganize itself, not in response to action, but in response to non-action. The field you carry starts to act like a quiet architect. It is not making demands. It is not visualizing or commanding, but it begins to open the possibility of events shifting course without needing direction. Stillness sends a command that cannot be heard, yet is always followed by reality with a strange kind of reverence. Possibility, pure and undefined, rises to the surface. The world stops pushing forward and instead waits to align. Then something unexplainable begins to occur. Time loosens. When you are perfectly still, something shifts in the way you are positioned within time itself, not metaphorically, but experientially. You are no longer caught in the predictable rhythm of cause and effect. Without moving forward or backward, you step out of the sequence. In this space, outcomes stop behaving in expected ways. Events that should have followed one another break apart. Reality becomes momentarily unhooked from its normal timeline, not in dramatic or surreal ways, but in quiet, almost unnoticeable shifts. Conversations happen earlier than they were meant to. Opportunities appear without the usual sequence that would have led to them. It is as if your stillness creates a crack in time's routine and allows something outside of it to enter. This phenomenon is not created by intention. It is not created by focus. It is not created by emotion. It is not the result of trying. It is what arises when all trying stops. The signal that stillness emits is not just the absence of noise. It is a presence of its own, a presence that cannot be measured, but is deeply felt by the environment, by the field, by the structure of reality itself. Stillness is not empty. It is not passive. It is not retreat. It is transmission in its most refined form. And in that transmission, there is quiet power that moves the world without touching it. Chapter 2. The Fold Between Decisions. In the quiet space between choosing one path and the next, something extraordinary happens. It is not the decision itself that defines the outcome, but the moment before action, where everything is open, uncertain, and full of potential. This is the space where timelines are not yet set, where reality remains fluid, and where the energetic field of possibility is in a constant state of flux. It is in this fold, this moment of suspended decision, that the fabric of time seems to shift and weave new possibilities into existence. This is not the space of certainty. Rather, it is the fertile ground where new timelines are quietly seeded. The moment when you hesitate or hold off on a choice, you enter a space with the ability to shape the future in ways that are unpredictable and unknown. This delay, this brief pause before action, is where the universe stretches out and offers pathways you may not have otherwise seen. In this space, where the mind has yet to commit to one course of action, there exists a subtle bending of reality. As you waver, even without any outward sign of indecision, you scatter the potential of many possibilities. These split-second moments of hesitation create cracks in the fabric of the linear timeline. The energy that normally propels you forward instead splinters, like light passing through a prism, refracting into alternate realities. Each alternate version of you, the one that might have taken a different step, followed another path, or made a different choice, now pulses briefly through the field. It's as if all possibilities exist at once, momentarily alive with the potential of what might have been or might still be. This splitting does not occur in a chaotic or overt manner. Instead, it happens gently as a shift in energy, a quiet whisper of other versions of yourself that could have stepped forward. Yet, even without a decision, they remain present, like shadows of paths not taken but still alive, echoing into the present. These untaken decisions create an interesting dynamic. Thoughts that you've not yet acted upon hover in the mental space like unanchored entities. They float freely, unattached to any solid form or fixed intention. In this way, these uncommitted thoughts have a subtle influence over the surrounding energetic fields. They don't yet have the weight or direction that decisions bring with them, but they still exert a magnetic pull on the world around them. They lightly vibrate, creating ripples that alter the immediate environment without ever fully taking shape. These unformed ideas can nudge things just slightly, shift the way events unfold or the way others behave. They don't command attention, but they shape the subtle atmosphere of the moment. Like an invisible draft pushing you towards an unknown destination, the world responds not to the force of a decision, but to the gentleness of an unchosen thought that lingers long enough to leave a trace. During this time of hesitation, the very energy of indecision forms what can be called a slipstream through parallel possibilities. In this slipstream, multiple versions of your potential choices coexist for a fleeting moment. Each version, however small or large, interacts with the others, brushing up against one another in a quiet dance of potential. You may not feel it, but the different versions of you, those who might have made different choices, now ripple through the air as ghostly echoes of possible futures. This is the moment when parallel versions of reality overlap, and the space between them is filled with the faint hum of possibilities. Each path that could have been, each decision that you didn't make, still exists in this slipstream, hovering just beneath the surface of your current reality. And while these paths don't take form, they still brush against you, their energy nudging you in subtle ways. The hesitation gives rise to a connection between past and future versions of yourself, allowing you to sense multiple outcomes, each one just as valid as the next. The very act of choosing, or rather not choosing, creates an opening for ambiguity to flourish. When you are not sure, when you hold back, you create a space where things are no longer anchored in the way they were before. The path you are on begins to destabilize. The linear progression of events that would have followed one decision starts to lose its strength. It is as if the rules of the world begin to loosen. Ambiguity does not sit still in uncertainty. It thrives there. Where certainty would have created a predictable and known outcome, ambiguity steps in and offers strange, unexpected results. Unaligned outcomes begin to emerge, outcomes that don't follow the established order of events. These outcomes are not random, but they are unstructured, forming in a way that is unfamiliar yet full of potential. It's like the ground beneath your feet, shifting ever so slightly, not enough to throw you off balance, but enough to make you aware that the path ahead is less predictable, more pliable. In this space, You are not just a passive observer. Your indecision itself becomes an active force in shaping the future. The delay between decision and action holds tremendous power. It is here that new paths are coded, paths that would have remained invisible had you rushed to a conclusion. This space, this fold between decisions, is not an empty pause. It is the place where timelines are woven, where the possibility of a new future is born. And in this unfolding, the energy of indecision is not wasted. It becomes the very force that unlocks these unseen pathways. By simply allowing the moment to unfold without rushing to make a choice, you open the door to timelines that might otherwise remain closed. It is not about making a decision. It is about existing in the space where decisions have not yet been made and allowing that ambiguity to create something new. The fold between decisions is not an empty void. It is the gateway to unknown realms of possibility, where everything is still in motion and everything is yet to be determined. Chapter 3. The geometry behind spontaneity. When a person acts spontaneously without premeditation or planning, they inject an element of disruption into the very fabric of reality. It's as if the universe, for a brief moment, doesn't know how to respond to the sudden departure from the expected flow of events. These unfiltered actions, whether seemingly small or drastically out of the norm, fracture the rigid pathways that have already been laid out by past choices and circumstances. This is not the same as unpredictability, where things are just random or chaotic. Instead, it's a specific kind of disruption, one that shifts the trajectory of reality itself. Spontaneous actions don't just change the course of an event, they create a fracture in the continuum that allows for new possibilities to emerge. Like a crack forming in a wall, these impulsive moments provide access to spaces that would have remained hidden had the mind followed a more predictable path. It is through these fractures that we witness the underlying geometry of how spontaneity can reshape our world. When we engage in spontaneous acts, we often bypass the natural flow of cause and effect. In most situations, actions follow a logical progression, each step leading to the next, dictated by the events that came before. But when spontaneity enters the equation, this linearity dissolves. It is no longer about what should happen based on prior events, but rather about entering an unplanned reality. Spontaneous choices make time irrelevant. They unlock access to experiences that do not adhere to the conventional sequencing of cause and effect. These actions do not follow the rules. They move outside the structure of before and after, and instead pull us into moments that exist beyond that structure. When we act spontaneously, we are, in a way, entering a realm where time becomes irrelevant, and events are not restricted by their order of occurrence. It's as though time and reality open up and allow us to step outside of their expected course. Through such unplanned actions, we can see how spontaneity is not bound by the laws that typically govern our experience. Another fascinating effect of spontaneous action is the reorganization of physical space and events. A single impulsive decision can cause a subtle yet powerful shift in the immediate environment. This is not always about dramatic, large-scale changes, but more about the smaller, often unnoticed reconfigurations that occur as a result. A person who suddenly takes a different route on their way home, for instance, may cause a small alteration in the flow of their day. Something as simple as meeting a person they wouldn't have encountered otherwise, or having an unexpected conversation that alters the course of the future. These subtle shifts in the layout of events, interactions, or objects in the environment are what we can refer to as spatial resequencing. When spontaneity is introduced, the world around us is not static. It dynamically reorganizes, and the patterns of how things were meant to unfold are adjusted. These small but significant alterations are often invisible to the naked eye, but leave a lasting impression on the way reality is structured in that moment. Impulsive energy has the ability to create ripples that are not stored within traditional probability archives. Probability is often thought of as a predictable system, a model of what might happen based on what has already occurred. But when we act impulsively, we create outcomes that were not predicted, nor could they have been. These outcomes, born from spontaneous choices, do not fit neatly into the model of likelihood. They exist outside of the stored data of probable futures, and instead emerge in a space of potentiality that is uncharted. It is as if a new wave of energy enters the system, one that does not conform to any patterns or charts. These waves are like unpredictable disturbances on a calm ocean, unexpected, untamed, and unaccounted for. They don't belong to the archive of probabilities because they were never anticipated. Spontaneity brings new energy into the system, energy that defies predictions and surprises the mind, creating entirely new and unforeseen outcomes. What happens when a high impulse action is introduced into the equation is the creation of a volatile zone, an area where everything feels slightly unstable, unpredictable, and ripe for change. These high impulse actions, which seem to come from nowhere, set off a chain reaction. In this space, the stability that usually holds events and outcomes in place is no longer as solid. It becomes porous. The structure of reality allows for new variables, previously hidden elements, to enter the picture. This is the volatility-driven opening that occurs when spontaneity disrupts the status quo. These new variables, or forces, can come in many forms. They might be opportunities, challenges, people, or experiences that would not have appeared if the actions had been more measured or predictable. What happens is that a space of openness is created. It's a crack in the consistency of the universe's regular rhythms, allowing new influences to enter. This volatility is not inherently chaotic, but is a manifestation of dynamic energy creating room for change. The introduction of these new elements can dramatically shift the course of events. They challenge the default pathways that would have otherwise continued, and in doing so, they allow reality to evolve in unexpected ways. The volatility that accompanies spontaneous actions acts as a gateway for the universe to recalibrate itself, opening up the possibility for new and unexplored outcomes to enter the stage. In these ways, spontaneity bends the logical structure of space and time. Each action that is unplanned, unanticipated, and impulsive becomes a key to unlocking new paths, disrupting old ones, and rearranging the way the world unfolds. What we often see as random or chaotic is actually a manifestation of deeper, unseen principles at play. These impulses, while unpredictable, have a profound effect on the larger structure of reality. Spontaneity is not merely a random act. It is a fundamental force that rearranges, reshapes, and resets the natural order of things. In this way, raw spontaneity does not just create new moments, it creates new futures, emerging from the fracturing of old patterns, opening new doors where none existed before. Chapter 4. The Magnetic Echo of Forgotten Thoughts. The concept of mental residue persistence unveils a powerful yet often overlooked aspect of our cognitive process. When we discard or dismiss a thought, it doesn't simply vanish. Instead, it leaves behind lingering fragments that subtly continue to shape our reality. These fragments are not actively engaged with our current thoughts or actions, yet they still radiate a magnetic energy that draws loosely related outcomes toward them. This lingering mental residue works quietly in the background, influencing situations, events, and even interactions that seem unrelated at first glance. These seemingly abandoned thoughts create an undercurrent of energy that pulls seemingly disconnected elements into alignment with the fragments of those thoughts. It's as if even when our minds have moved on from an idea or concept, that discarded energy continues to reverberate through reality, subtly directing the flow of events. This persistence of discarded thoughts shows that our mental processes never truly disappear. They simply shift into a different form of influence, unseen yet powerful in their ability to shape the world around us. When a thought is left incomplete, it doesn't simply fade away or lose its potency. In fact, it continues to broadcast broken signals into the world, affecting external patterns and environments in subtle yet significant ways. These incomplete thoughts, unlike fully realized ones, send out fragmented energy that has no clear destination or form. This broken signal does not follow the usual linear course of an idea that is fully developed. Instead, it scatters and interacts with the external world in unpredictable ways, stirring up influences that may seem disconnected or unrelated to the original thought. It's as though the incomplete thought is reaching out into the world, sending out ripples of energy that continue to reverberate, even in the absence of the full idea. These fragmented signals can be thought of as distorted echoes, influencing events, decisions, and circumstances in ways that we may not be consciously aware of. In essence, the thought that wasn't finished, the idea that was abandoned, continues to pulse through reality, altering the very fabric of outcomes in ways that reflect its unresolved nature. Cognitive drifting relays are the pathways where thoughts almost made it into our consciousness, yet were never fully realized. These incomplete, lingering thoughts form a kind of relay station in the mind where mental energy hovers, never fully transitioning into concrete awareness. They remain like relay nodes, floating in the cognitive space, awaiting a signal to complete them or to merge into a new train of thought. But even in their unfinished state, these thoughts continue to influence our environment in subtle ways. They don't remain stagnant. Instead, they resonate in the background, almost like background noise that shapes how we perceive things or how events unfold around us. These mental relays are not just isolated fragments. They are part of an interconnected web of influence, subtly shaping how we interact with the world. They have the potential to affect decision-making, to trigger memories, and to influence patterns of behavior, often without our conscious awareness. These thoughts that almost were continue to send out energetic pulses, causing a ripple effect on the environment, even though we don't fully grasp the impact they're having. The concept of neglected blueprint reflection illustrates how mental constructs that are left unused or unacknowledged often reappear in altered, externalized forms. A thought, once discarded or forgotten, does not simply disappear into oblivion. Instead, it may return to us later, manifesting in symbolic or altered forms outside of our mind. This could be a symbol, an object, or a situation that mirrors the neglected thought, but in a different context. For example, a design or idea that was once sketched out but abandoned may later appear in an entirely unrelated form. A painting, an encounter, or even a piece of art that seems to resonate with the discarded blueprint. The mind's abandoned creations have a way of resurfacing in the external world, sometimes in the form of physical objects or events that bring attention back to the original thought, even if we no longer remember it consciously. This reflects the idea that our mental energy never truly disappears. It is simply transformed and reflected back to us in ways that might seem unrelated, but carry the essence of the original thought or idea. It shows that everything we create mentally, whether we give it attention or not, continues to exist in some form and finds its way back into our experience, albeit in a different guise. Finally, the phenomenon of shadow concept reactivation reveals how a forgotten idea can resurface when an external situation or object reminds us of it. A shadow concept is a thought or idea that once had significance, but was left behind or forgotten, only to be reactivated later by something in our environment that reflects or resonates with it. This external similarity, whether it's a person, place, object, or event, acts as a catalyst, pulling the old forgotten timeline back into view. When this forgotten idea or concept is reactivated, it can have a profound effect on the course of our present moment. The timeline that was once abandoned or left unresolved reemerges, bringing with it the energy and potential that were once part of it. This reactivation can take many forms. It might bring an old project or goal back into focus, inspire a long-forgotten ambition, or trigger a memory that shifts your perspective. These forgotten thoughts, when reawakened, bring with them the energy of the past, but they are now aligned with the present, creating an opportunity to finish what was once left incomplete. The power of a forgotten thought is not in its absence, but in its potential to re-enter the field of reality when it is triggered by something external, thus influencing the current trajectory of events. These mechanisms show that our thoughts, even when discarded, are far from gone. They continue to pulse through reality, shaping our world in unseen ways. The fragments of forgotten thoughts, the incompleteness of ideas left unfinished, the drifting cognitive relays, the neglected blueprints, and the shadow concepts all form an invisible undercurrent that influences the flow of events around us. The reality we experience is not just built upon what we consciously focus on, but also shaped by these unseen, lingering echoes of our own mental processes. They may seem insignificant or inconsequential, but they are quietly interwoven into the fabric of our existence, influencing the choices we make, the paths we take, and the experiences we encounter. In this way, the mind's discards do not simply fade. They continue to shape the world, quietly re-entering our lives when the time is right. Chapter 5. The Soundless Frequency. Transfer. Energy transfer through inner force operates at a level that transcends verbal communication, sound, or any visible action. One of the fundamental aspects of this process is the concept of pressure-based signal output. When we experience unspoken internal pressure, it can subtly yet powerfully affect the energetic structures around us. This pressure does not need to be expressed outwardly. It is an internal force that, when built up, warps the surrounding energy fields. These changes are not always visible, yet they influence everything within the proximity of this force. Imagine the way physical pressure can bend or alter the shape of an object. Similarly, the unseen pressure created by internal states can reshape the energy fields in our environment, producing effects that ripple outwards. This subtle distortion in the energy structures is not just a passive influence. It has the capacity to shift the energy flow, alter the way other energies interact, and ultimately affect the patterns and events unfolding in that space. This pressure-based energy transfer reveals that our inner states can hold far more influence than the external world might suggest, showing that we are capable of affecting our surroundings without uttering a single word or making a single gesture. Silent resonance injections are another fascinating way inner force transfers energy into the surrounding field. When a person holds a particular internal state, whether that state is calm, intense, joyful, or focused, it sends a resonance into the energy field without any outward action or spoken word. This resonance operates like a tone that is injected into the space around us. Just as a sound resonates through the air when vocalized, an internal state holds a frequency that can be transmitted outwardly, even without the use of sound or action. This internal tone, while invisible to the naked eye, interacts with the environment in profound ways. The resonance that is projected from one's internal state can affect everything in the surrounding area, whether it is other people, objects, or even situations. The key here is the understanding that energy can be transmitted in ways beyond the traditional use of sound or visible movement. The mere presence of a focused internal state sends out ripples that vibrate through the surrounding space, creating shifts that would otherwise be invisible to those who might only rely on external action to measure influence. Pulse frequency leakage occurs when emotional intensity builds up internally without expression. This emotional energy, even though it is not being externally conveyed, leaks out and vibrates through the surrounding space. It functions in much the same way as a signal from a cell tower. Though it may not be actively transmitted in the conventional sense, it still radiates outward, broadcasting into the local energetic grid. These internal emotional frequencies, whether they are intense feelings of joy, anger, sorrow, or passion, are not isolated within the individual. Instead, they extend outward, subtly infiltrating the environment. This leakage happens because energy is not confined within the body. It naturally seeks to flow outward, especially when emotions are involved. As these emotional frequencies leak, they interact with the local energy field, creating subtle shifts in how others perceive or experience their environment. These shifts are often imperceptible on the surface, but can have lasting effects on relationships, outcomes, and even the flow of events. The emotional intensity that goes unexpressed finds its own way of creating waves in the surrounding field, revealing that energy is not bound by the limitations of voice or visible actions. Field saturation override refers to the ability of a person's inner force to dominate and saturate the energy space they occupy. When this inner energy is fully charged or focused, it can overpower and override the weaker signals of the shared environment. It's as though the personal energy field becomes so saturated with force that it transcends the boundaries of individual influence, filling the entire space with its presence. This overwhelming force pushes out or neutralizes other, weaker energies in the environment, shifting the dynamic in ways that are often imperceptible but significant. In this state of saturation, the energetic field no longer merely responds to external inputs. It begins to direct and reshape the energetic environment. The individual's presence, even without verbal communication or action, creates a powerful force field that can alter the way others within the space interact, perceive, or behave. This dominance of inner force can create a shift in group dynamics, decisions, and even physical outcomes, reflecting the idea that energy is not passive, but actively shaping the world around us. Tone-free alignment displacement further demonstrates how energy can influence reality without any need for sound or visible action. When energy is transmitted without any sound or spoken word, it still carries with it the power to realign the framework of interaction within a given environment. Just as sound can be used to adjust frequencies, the alignment of energy can shift in a space, influencing the interactions between people, objects, and situations. The term tone-free refers to the absence of any literal vibration or sound wave, yet the alignment of energy still occurs. This alignment, often subtle, can result in a complete repositioning of how individuals or elements within a space interact. It may cause changes in the flow of conversation, in decision-making processes, or even in the way people physically position themselves in relation to each other. The internal force of a person, when focused or held without any outward action, can influence how events unfold or how energy is distributed within a shared space. The concept of tone-free alignment displacement reveals that energy can impact reality profoundly, even when it appears to be absent of sound, movement, or visible intention. It underscores the power of inner force, which operates on a frequency that transcends the need for physical or auditory manifestations, reshaping the energetic field of reality in a way that remains largely imperceptible but undeniable. Through these mechanisms, we begin to see how energy transfer operates in profound ways beyond what can be physically observed or audibly measured, whether it is through pressure-based output, silent resonance, pulse frequency leakage, field saturation override, or tone-free alignment displacement. The internal forces we carry, thoughts, emotions, and states of being, are constantly influencing the world around us. These processes are often invisible and silent, yet they operate powerfully, quietly, reshaping the energetic environment in ways that go unnoticed. They reveal the hidden power of inner states and the silent influence we have on the energy around us, proving that even without speaking, moving, or acting outwardly, we can still alter the fabric of our reality. Chapter 6. The Invisible Synchronization Blueprint. At the core of reality's unfolding, there is a subtle and almost imperceptible force that connects everything, even when we are unaware of it. This is the realm of nonlinear chain events, where things occur in a logical void, seemingly disconnected, yet profoundly linked beneath the surface. These events do not follow a clear, step-by-step sequence. They appear without warning and often defy any predictable cause and effect relationships. However, upon closer inspection, one can see the intricate web of connections that underpins these events. They may appear random or coincidental, but they are part of a much larger flow of interconnected occurrences that transcend linear thinking. The unpredictable nature of nonlinear events suggests that there are hidden pathways between events that are not immediately visible to the conscious mind. These pathways are not governed by our understanding of time or space, yet they play an integral role in shaping the course of our lives. The true nature of these events only becomes apparent once one observes the bigger picture, where patterns and connections form in ways that elude the surface-level mind. The randomness and chaos that these events may initially appear to convey are, in fact, a dance of interconnected energy, unfolding beyond our comprehension, but with an underlying purpose. Invisible framework convergence occurs when seemingly unrelated elements of reality align with perfect precision despite our lack of awareness. In this process, an energetic template exists beneath the surface, guiding and coordinating the alignment of various events and elements in a way that appears effortless. This convergence happens without any personal effort or conscious intervention. It is as if an invisible hand is orchestrating the alignment, ensuring that disparate elements come together at just the right moment. These elements might seem random on their own, but when viewed as part of a larger framework, their purpose becomes clear. The energy of the universe works in a way that brings together what needs to be together, often in ways that we cannot directly control or understand. This process occurs outside of our conscious observation, yet it profoundly shapes the reality we experience. The precision with which the elements align is often unnoticed, yet it is a constant force shaping outcomes and facilitating the flow of events. The hidden framework operates in the background, ensuring that every piece falls into place without our conscious involvement. It is an unspoken order that guides reality's unfolding, working through the unseen layers of existence to manifest what needs to be. Simultaneity layering is a phenomenon where multiple events unfold simultaneously, yet in different locations or on different scales within the same energetic layer. These events do not occur in a sequential or linear fashion. Instead, they happen in parallel, each contributing to the larger whole. The simultaneity of these events indicates that reality operates on a frequency where things can be experienced in multiple ways at once. These events, though taking place in different spaces, are part of a unified whole that operates beyond the constraints of physical time and location. The energy involved in these events interweaves across dimensions, playing out in various forms simultaneously. While we may experience them separately in our daily lives, they are all expressions of the same energetic layer. Each event in this layer echoes and influences the others, even if we are not aware of it. The idea of simultaneity suggests that reality is not as linear as we perceive it. Instead, it operates as a multidimensional phenomenon, where the boundaries of time and space are fluid. As these layered events unfold, they weave together into a larger pattern, subtly guiding the flow of reality in ways that may go unnoticed by the conscious mind. The interconnectedness of these events speaks to a deeper level of synchrony in the universe, where everything is happening at once, and yet each event plays its own unique role in the greater design. Echo-linked triggers are another powerful aspect of invisible synchronicity, where a single choice made in one context triggers a mirrored effect in an entirely different field. This process highlights how our actions, even when seemingly isolated, reverberate across different areas of life and the universe. The choice made in one moment does not exist in isolation. It ripples through the fabric of reality, creating effects that are often unexpected and far-reaching. The beauty of this phenomenon lies in its unpredictability. The echo of our choices triggers changes in spaces we might never have anticipated, bringing about new opportunities, challenges, or circumstances that appear unrelated to the original action. These linked triggers operate on a level beyond our understanding, pulling us toward unexpected outcomes that align with a hidden purpose. When one chooses to act, that decision doesn't simply exist in the moment. It reverberates through time and space, sending echoes that manifest as new situations or changes in other areas of life. This form of interconnectedness speaks to the unseen, energetic bonds between all things, revealing that every action has a far-reaching influence. The mirrored effect of these triggers is an example of how the universe responds to our choices, creating outcomes that transcend our immediate awareness. Sequence field nesting is the phenomenon of patterns building within patterns, much like nesting dolls, where hidden layers self-assemble autonomously. In this process, the sequence of events or occurrences is not linear, but is organized within layers, each layer adding to and interacting with the others. Just as one doll fits inside another, these nested patterns form complex structures that guide the unfolding of reality in ways that remain largely invisible to the conscious mind. These nested fields operate on a deeper level where smaller patterns are part of a larger, more complex design. The layers of energy and events build upon each other, creating a framework that can only be fully understood when viewed from a higher perspective. The self-assembling nature of these fields means that they unfold according to their own principles, independent of personal will or recognition. While we may not see how these layers interact, their impact on the world around us is undeniable. The nesting of fields reveals that reality is not a simple linear progression, but a dynamic, interconnected web of patterns that constantly shift and evolve. The layers of these fields interact with one another, creating complex feedback loops that shape the future. This process happens automatically, without the need for conscious effort, and often without any recognition of the deeper patterns at play. The sequence field nesting demonstrates that reality is a constantly evolving and self-organizing system, where each event and interaction is part of a larger hidden design that continuously shapes the flow of existence. Together, these patterns of invisible synchronicity create a complex and interconnected reality where events unfold in ways that transcend personal awareness and effort. The nonlinear chain of events, invisible framework convergence, simultaneity layering, echo-linked triggers, and sequence field nesting all speak to a deeper order that operates beyond our conscious understanding. These synchronicities are not random. They are part of a hidden, energetic template that shapes the flow of existence. The patterns are not immediately apparent, yet they guide and influence the unfolding of events in ways that we may never fully comprehend. These covert synchronicities reveal that the universe operates on a level beyond our conscious perception, where every element is connected and every action has a ripple effect across time and space. Chapter 7. The Unconscious Reality. Designers beneath the conscious awareness, the world around us is constantly shaping and influencing our thoughts, actions, and reactions through a silent, invisible process. This process, often unacknowledged, involves visual input imprinting, where seemingly insignificant images in our peripheral vision play a crucial role in creating our response matrix. We tend to focus on what is directly in front of us, yet the unconscious mind absorbs everything, even those fleeting visuals at the edge of our sight. These peripheral images, often unnoticed, hold significant power in programming our subconscious responses. Over time, these impressions create neural pathways that guide our behaviors, actions, and interpretations of reality without us even realizing it. For instance, the quick glance at a billboard, a color in the background, or even the shape of an object in the periphery can alter our decisions, perspectives, and emotional reactions in ways we can't consciously trace. This silent programming can influence us from early childhood, shaping our perception of the world and reinforcing belief systems that we've never consciously formulated. These subtle visual cues form an underlying narrative that dictates much of our experience, even when we don't consciously register them. They are like whispers from the environment, crafting a reality beneath the surface of awareness that aligns with the themes encoded in our minds, guiding us into automatic reactions and patterns that shape our everyday lives. The automatic narrative alignment takes these impressions a step further. It is the process through which our lives bend toward invisible stories shaped by the belief clusters we've internalized over time. These belief clusters, shaped by culture, upbringing, experiences, and societal conditioning, create a blueprint that automatically aligns with our reality. Often, these beliefs go unspoken, unexamined, and even unknown to us. They become the invisible narratives that steer our path, shaping what we accept as reality. For example, we may never articulate the belief that we are undeserving of wealth or love, but such beliefs operate silently in the background, dictating the events that unfold in our lives. These automatic narratives prevent us from stepping outside of our conditioned paths and viewing life with fresh eyes. The unconscious mind, using these belief clusters, pushes us to recreate the same experiences repeatedly, reinforcing the personal stories that have been written without our active consent. This process occurs without us ever consciously choosing to follow these narratives. And because these belief systems are often hidden from conscious awareness, they shape our lives with minimal resistance. It is through the silent alignment of these hidden narratives that we unconsciously craft a life that seems predetermined, simply because we are continually replaying the same internal stories. In parallel with these hidden beliefs, there are sensory absence fields, elements of our environment, or sensory experiences that we are either unaware of or cannot physically perceive, yet they have a significant influence on our external reality. These absence fields attract chaotic variables into our lives. We are often blind to certain aspects of our surroundings, whether it's the subtle shift in the temperature, the unnoticed flicker of light, or the barely perceptible movement in the air. These seemingly insignificant details, when absent from our awareness, still play a role in shaping what happens around us. The things we fail to notice, or the sensations we cannot register, leave a gap in our environmental perception. The lack of awareness of certain sensory elements opens the door for the unexpected, the random, and the chaotic to emerge. It's as though the universe takes advantage of these unseen gaps, introducing variables that we are ill-equipped to process consciously. By failing to attend to these sensory inputs, we leave room for unpredictable events to occur. These chaotic variables, though largely unnoticed, work silently beneath the surface, nudging the flow of life in ways that are often beyond our understanding. The absence of awareness itself becomes a fertile ground for the unknown to enter, shaping events in ways that seem completely out of our control. Similarly, subthreshold memory discharge plays a crucial role in the design of our unconscious reality. The concept of subthreshold memories refers to tiny sensory recalls from our past, those moments that we may not consciously remember, but still hold a profound influence on our behavior and actions. These memories, although not fully accessible to our conscious mind, continue to influence the way we interact with the world. For example, a faint recollection of a certain texture, smell, or tone might influence how we perceive a person or situation without us realizing why. These subtle memories lingering beneath the surface, can affect everything from our relationships to our career choices. The impact of these forgotten moments is not just emotional but also physical, affecting the behavior of matter in our environment. These memories, stored in the depths of the unconscious mind, silently trigger patterns of behavior that shape the outcomes we experience. They are like ghosts from the past that continue to influence our present reality, driving us in directions that align with past experiences. Even when we do not consciously recall them, the power of these sub-threshold memories lies in their ability to guide us without us ever realizing the origin of the influence. They are the hidden architects behind many of our automatic reactions and decisions, subtly affecting how we engage with the world and what we draw into our lives. Lastly, unacknowledged cognitive triggers are minute, unnoticed perceptions that shape our reality in powerful, invisible ways. These triggers can be as subtle as a color, a change in posture, or even the angle at which something is presented to us. While we might not consciously focus on these details, they act as seeds that initiate larger shifts in our perceptions, choices, and interactions with others. The visual cues that we fail to acknowledge, such as a certain color reminding us of a particular emotion or a posture that feels unsettling, begin to alter the energetic pattern we project. These unacknowledged triggers influence us at a deep, often unconscious level, leading to shifts in our behavior that we cannot easily explain. These seemingly insignificant details become embedded in our psyche, acting as hidden signals that navigate the direction of our lives. Without our awareness, these tiny cognitive shifts can reframe our entire reality, guiding us toward outcomes based on the subtle signals we receive but do not recognize. As the mind processes these unnoticed cues, it reconfigures how we interact with the world, leading to shifts in our behavior, choices, and the circumstances we encounter. These hidden psychological, visual, and environmental factors weave a complex web of influence that operates beneath the surface of our awareness. The things we overlook, the peripheral images, the invisible narratives, the absent sensory fields, are all working together to design the world we experience. We may not be consciously aware of the forces shaping our lives, but they are constantly in motion, silently crafting our reality. The unconscious reality designers are always at work, guiding us through invisible patterns and shaping our responses in ways we cannot consciously grasp. These unseen forces are the architects of the life we live, constructing an elaborate world from the smallest details that we are rarely aware of, yet which shape everything we experience. Chapter 8. The Collapse Key. How reality ends and begins again. Reality is built upon recurring patterns, structures that exist both in the external world and within our internal perceptions. However, there are specific conditions where these patterns can collapse, causing a temporary dissolution of the known world. This process, though subtle and often unnoticed, has profound implications on how we experience reality. One such process involves pattern termination codes, specific frequency signals within us that have the potential to force the collapse of these repeated external patterns. These patterns often form the basis of what we call our reality, shaping the trajectory of our lives, our relationships, and our perception of time. When these internal frequency signals are activated, they send out a force that disrupts these established structures, creating an opening for something entirely new to emerge. These frequencies operate beyond conscious control, subtly shifting the energetic alignment of the individual and, by extension, the world around them. By tuning into these codes, it becomes possible to dismantle the very foundation of repeating experiences, offering the potential for change in a seemingly fixed reality. The frequency emitted can, in essence, call an end to the perpetual loops of cause and effect, allowing for an opening in the fabric of reality that makes room for new possibilities. This process happens subtly but undeniably, like a key turning in a lock, opening a door that leads to a completely different realm of experience. One of the most powerful tools in this process is conscious absence insertion. The act of withdrawing awareness from a specific structure, whether it be an emotion, a thought, or a physical object, can cause it to disassemble entirely. This technique relies on the idea that what we focus on holds form. Our attention, whether conscious or subconscious, serves as the glue that binds certain realities together. When we direct our awareness fully onto a structure, whether it's an event, a relationship, or a belief, we reinforce its existence in our lives. However, the opposite is equally true. When we pull our awareness away from something, we weaken its presence. In fact, by consciously inserting absence, by choosing not to pay attention to certain structures, we enable them to dissolve. This absence is not the mere act of ignoring. It is the deliberate withdrawal of focus from a specific point of reality, creating a shift that destabilizes the structure of that reality. It's akin to turning off the mental spotlight that once illuminated a specific path. The path itself, no longer energized by our attention, begins to collapse, leaving room for new paths and realities to emerge. This act of conscious absence is a tool that allows us to escape repetitive cycles and create openings in our lives, making it possible for new possibilities to enter, and for old, outworn patterns to cease existing. Entropic spikes also play a significant role in the collapse of reality. Entropy refers to the natural tendency for systems to move towards disorder, and in the context of reality's collapse, it can be induced by a specific combination of volatile thoughts and emotions. These combinations create a destabilizing force that disrupts the established order of reality. When a person experiences intense or chaotic emotional states in conjunction with conflicting thoughts, they are effectively destabilizing the scaffolding of their own reality. These entropic spikes introduce a chaos that fractures the solidified patterns, much like an earthquake destabilizes a building. This disruption causes cracks in the otherwise rigid structures of reality, making it possible for things to break down. The power of entropic spikes lies in their unpredictability. They break the rules and boundaries of reality, forcing it to dissolve in unexpected ways. These spikes, although seemingly destructive, offer the possibility of transformation. They disrupt the flow of time, space, and sequence, creating a window for something new to emerge. The chaotic, uncontrolled nature of entropy is what makes it such a powerful tool in collapsing old realities and creating space for new ones. When we hold an impossible belief, we create a structural dissonance that can snap the logic grid holding our reality in place. This technique involves introducing a belief that contradicts the very foundations of the logical framework that supports our perception of the world. The logic grid is the set of rules, beliefs, and assumptions that govern how we interpret and interact with reality. When we hold a belief that is entirely out of alignment with this grid, it creates tension. This dissonance is like a sharp, discordant note in an otherwise harmonious tune. The tension builds, and eventually causes a snap, breaking the logic grid that has been holding our reality together. This break allows for a shift in the way reality is structured, creating a moment of instability where new possibilities can emerge. The power of holding an impossible belief lies in its ability to shatter the existing framework, making it possible for new laws and structures to take root. This disruption doesn't require any effort other than the persistence of a belief that doesn't fit within the established order, and yet it can have profound effects on the way the world operates around us. Once the collapse has occurred, the reconstruction initiation field takes over. This field operates in the stillness after the disintegration, determining what data will be reassembled first. In the aftermath of reality's collapse, there is a moment of emptiness, a blank canvas upon which new patterns can be written. This field, while silent and subtle, plays a crucial role in guiding what comes next. In the same way that an artist chooses which elements to place on a canvas first, the reconstruction field determines which fragments of data, whether emotional, thought-based, or physical, will take shape again in the new reality. It is a quiet yet powerful force that ensures the continuity of life even after the dissolution of old structures. The exact nature of what is reconstructed depends on the conditions set during the collapse itself. What is chosen for reassembly often aligns with the individual's subconscious intentions, desires, or the frequency signals they were emitting prior to the collapse. This moment of silent restructuring is key to shaping the new reality, as it determines how the scattered pieces of the old world will be reconnected, and which new elements will emerge from the ashes of the old. Through this process, reality is rewritten, and a new structure is set in place, ensuring that the collapse is not the end, but rather a transition to something entirely new. As we've explored each chapter, we've uncovered hidden forces at play within our reality, subtle, energetic patterns that shape our world in ways we often don't perceive. From the stillness that carries profound power to the unconscious forces designing the reality we experience, we've learned how these invisible mechanisms influence everything from our thoughts to the very fabric of space and time itself. Now it's your turn to be part of this journey. If you like this video, you amplify the energy, aligning yourself with the forces of change that shape your world. When you share it, you spread this power, allowing others to tap into the same transformative frequency, creating ripples of change across their realities. And by subscribing, you ensure a continual connection to this deep knowledge, keeping the flow of these powerful insights coming into your life, guiding you towards even greater shifts in your perception. So if you're ready to continue evolving, like, share, and subscribe, and watch as these unseen forces begin to manifest in your world.